thoroughbreds. The Mannings know how to raise athletes. There's a quarterback from New Orleans that isn't even old enough to drive a car, but is already being hailed as the next great NFL prospect. His last name is familiar with anyone with even the slightest knowledge of football. There is more to Arch Manning than his last name, as he is legitimately a college recruiter's dream and probably the next highly touted future NFL quarterback. Not right now, but I'd give it half a dozen years. As the top quarterback in the recruiting class of 2023, Arch Manning is the grandson of Archie Manning and the nephew of future Hall of Famers and Super Bowl winners Peyton Manning and Eli Manning. Arch is the son of the oldest Manning brother, Cooper Manning, who was a receiver in high school, even an all-star, but had to hang up his cleats when he was diagnosed with spinal stenosis, which required several operations. Cooper remained involved in football and is currently the host of the Manning
he looked just like his brothers.
Son to love and excel at the sport as much as him and the rest of the family. So what's going on, guys? Your boy Mike here, backing out with another upload. Now, before we get to the content, please take a moment to leave a like, consider subscribing and turning on our notifications to help this channel make the push to 300,000 subscribers. If you want to go the extra mile to support our channel, check out our channel memberships program and check us out on Instagram and Twitter. All of our social medias are in the description down below. Now that we got all that out of the way, break.
What up, Frosty?
Check 1 2 1 2. 2 springs ago, on a practice field of a well-known 117-year-old private school in uptown New Orleans, an 8th grader, number 16 on his jersey, but just 13 years old, was put in as a high school quarterback.
13.
On his first snap in the shotgun formation, Arch Manning yelled out an audible, then casted the football graceful like a fishing line launched in the Gulf of Mexico right into the hands of a wide receiver. A 25-yard touchdown pass. That clip now has well over 2 million views on ESPN social media accounts, but more importantly, it started the conversation of yet another Manning that is destined for the next level. Arch Manning, at the very next spring practice just before his freshman year, would step onto the field to almost 20 college coaches there just to watch him sling the football. As a freshman, he threw for 2,438 yards, 34 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. 3 of those interceptions was by the same player. People
that's crazy.
Arch, barely a teenager, before games for pictures. Many of them were middle-aged men. There were even 2 adults
threw 3
that
picks to
would
the same
pose as
player.
working photographers just to be close to the next great Manning. And yes, they were quickly escorted off of the field. Arch Manning started this 2020 fall season by putting up an absurd 6-touchdown performance with a 41-0 win. It was a victory in which Manning threw for 5 touchdowns and rushed for 1 to put the cherry on top. In that fabulous spring debut, he completed 13 of 17 attempts for 200.
Appreciate you, Matthew.
Yards,
appreciate you,
with
bro.
2 of the incompletions
I'm gonna run through how to join the
that
clan after this video.
passes, which technically weren't his fault.
Appreciate it,
but
bro.
that's not what
For
the
those who do
basic
want to
stats
join the clan,
show.
I'm gonna run through that after
Then
this video.
earlier this month, Arch, a now confirmed star quarterback for Isidore Newman High School in New Orleans, a
Best NFL
prestigious
family,
private
Mannings or
school behind
Matthews.
Wrought Iron Gates, a school that
Clay Matthews. Who the other Clay Matthews? Who's his brothers? What's up, good? Who the other Matthews?
Eli and Peyton also played at, alongside with star wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. Arch would make his television debut. That introduction was a
Wait.
55-22 win. That Eli and Peyton also played at, alongside with star wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr.
Oh, it's a
Arch
school.
would make his television debut. That
Can smile later.
was a head
We gonna see, bro. If I do
55-22
reactions again later, I
win
got you.
over the New Orleans public charter school, Booker T. Washington. Arch Manning was very, well, Manning-like, as he went 21 of 27 with 241 yards and had 2 passing touchdowns. He also rushed for an additional 2 touchdowns and threw 2 interceptions, one being to the nemesis that had 3 picks against him last season. Seriously, who is that?
Bro, so the same player, the only interceptions he threw were to the same player, and he threw 4 picks to the same player. That's crazy.
Guy. How do we not know this guy's name? He has 4 interceptions against Arch already. Now, one of Arch's interceptions was a deep throw into triple coverage, reminiscent of a Hail Mary and not a decision that is typically made in the third quarter when your team is up by 12 points. However, for every miscue he displayed, and believe me, there were just a few, there were glimpses of the quality play that takes place
That was
on
a nice throw.
Sundays, not Friday nights, such as when he scrambled on a 3rd and 5, allowing him time to find an open wide receiver far downfield, in which he perfectly lost
Nice
the football
spiral.
between 2 defenders.
Ooh.
Arch Manning's television debut night wasn't perfect, but it had sports writers typing and early birds calling for him as an NFL prospect to enter the 2026 NFL Draft. His size, arm, and ability to make plays happen was the real deal. Remember, he is only a sophomore in high school after all. Now, currently, Arch stands at 6'3" and weighs in at 195 pounds. And
As
on
a
the
sophomore,
high
that's
school football
crazy.
field, next to a lot
Yeah,
of
Bruce is
16,
dad.
17, and some 18-year-olds, he already
Bruce
looks like a
Matthews, Jake
collegiate player.
Matthews.
His father is
I'd have to watch
6'4",
them.
and his uncles, remember those
I think Jake
NFL
Matthews is a
legends
lineman,
we've
right?
named
I don't know who
1,000
Bruce
times,
is.
are 6'5". So Arch may have to grow a few more inches before he
13 and
graduates high
6'3" is
school.
crazy.
At 15 years old, this Manning is already regularly calling audibles. And although the recruiting websites have him listed as a pro-style quarterback, his ability to work outside of the pocket and the courage to lower his shoulder against the defenses that he faces is already impressing a lot of people. Archie, his grandfather, has already said more than once that Arch is already ahead of where Peyton and Eli were when they were at his point in high school, as they weren't even
Most
starters
def, because they
until
just gonna
were
pass on the
sophomores.
knowledge.
The collegiate offers are out there. They would have been his freshman year, but the family didn't accept any calls until present day. The cycle with most elite quarterbacks, if the Power 5 schools
Bruce
don't
Matthews probably the
call
greatest
you,
offensive
soon
lineman
the
ever. Okay.
NFL scouts will too. Manning to date has had 9 really good scholarship offers, and he's not even halfway through his sophomore season. Those offers include national championship contenders and NFL Hall of Fame manufacturers of Alabama, LSU, and Georgia. Also on the list are his uncle's former teams, Ole Miss for Eli Manning and Tennessee for Peyton, then a handful of other big-name schools.
Oh,
If this Manning
catch.
continues on the path he has paved for him so far, he could be
He looked
setting
like he got some
himself up
mobility
to
to
have
him,
been
so
called in the first round, and perhaps even as the first pick in that
he walked like
2026
Peyton.
NFL draft. If there is something to say about genetics, it is on Arch's side. Arch Manning's namesake and grandfather Archie was the 2nd overall pick in the 1971 NFL draft, and then he would play for 10 years for the New Orleans Saints. Peyton was the number 1 overall pick in the 1998 NFL draft, and we know his story. And Eli was the number 1 pick in the 2004 NFL draft, and his story is well documented as well. Roger Goodell may
Both his
already
uncles
be
got 2
dreaming of
rings,
the
so
day that
can't
he
go
gets
wrong
to
with
put
that.
an NFL hat on Arch's head and start another Manning legacy. Arch's high school coach, like any prep coach, can compliment his starting
7
quarterback
family
all
members
day
in
long,
the
but remember,
in
there
the
are some
NFL. That's
other big
crazy.
names that have been under center on the same field. Those such as his all-star uncles. So even though he is a high school coach, he holds a little more credibility. He's one of the most athletic kids we've had back here, said Nelson Stewart,
Ariana
which is
Grande
Arch's
music
coach
vid.
at Isidore Newman High. If not the most athletic, he's his own entity. We tread lightly in terms of comparing Arch. With the last name Manning, there's already a spotlight on you as soon as a football is put into your hands. His coach laminates on that Arch certainly doesn't need to hear you throw like your Uncle Peyton, your agility is like your Uncle Eli, or your grandpa Archie used to do it that way. According to Stewart, Arch compares himself to his namesake, his grandfather, rather than his superstar uncles. He kind of likes to compare himself to his grandfather, Stewart says, which I think is kind of cool. Old school or new school, Arch Manning is a name that will continue to be more prevalent on Friday nights, Saturdays, and probably Sundays in the next decade. If he ever needs advice, his grandfather is just a few miles away. Ever since Arch was in grade school and even in his early days of flag football, Archie often admitted that his eldest grandson is really good. Really good. That's proven to be
The
more
mobility
than
makes it
just
hard to believe he's a
grandfather
Manning.
talk, as the world has begun to see
And he
that
looked like he
Arch
could
is
move, bro.
really
For
good.
real.
The realization is that there are a few NFL scouts who are watching much high school tape at the moment, but in the next 3 to 4 years, when the Division I footage is rolling in for Arch Manning, then then the draft stock talk will
That was a
certainly
perfect
heat
pass.
up. The Manning boys have been notorious for not letting their head get too inflated and overcome their ability to produce on the field. So one can only imagine that Arch Manning's future is very bright. Arch is not on social media, which is shocking for a 15-year-old from Gen Z. And
That's a
hasn't
good thing,
even
though.
yet done an in-depth interview. But this is mainly because
Stay
the
focused.
typically media-friendly Manning family doesn't speak on Arch or allow him to do interview. John Georges, who owns Louisiana's largest newspapers, said of the Mannings, they are very private and protective of Arch. As much as they try to keep a lid on it, there is a buzz. Certain people know how to raise thoroughbreds. The Mannings know how to raise athletes. For Arch Manning's sake, hopefully
He probably got
he'll
like a
enjoy
fence
his
store or
past few
something.
years and will be able to sustain a carefree existence for as long as possible. Most importantly, may he be well protected while he sits in the pocket on game day, as perhaps someday, many years down the road, after successful reigns in the SEC and the NFL, there will be several Manning busts in Canton.
You done messed up, Aaron!
Yeah. Hey, Hall. Man amongst boys, I walk with the Lord. Gotta be careful what you say because your tongue is a sword. Why you speaking without thinking? Ain't no easy.